And now it's time for another thrilling chapter of Black Star. Let's dive right in, guys. The rain became a drizzle. Tokyo shivered in the November air. Nothing lasts forever in the cold November rain. Does anyone remember November Rain from Guns N' Roses? Awesome tune. Anyway, in the puddled streets, the city light shimmered in unnatural colors, making the asphalt look infected, gangrenous. Oh, pardon me, I just downed a bottle of Pepsi Max Cherry before recording. The trains had ceased running, and between their slumber and the foul weather and the dampened, frightful populace, everything seemed quieter than it had ever been. Anxiety chewed at their spirits, and paranoia held sway over all. They slept restlessly, these people, grimacing through their dreams, hands crawling like spiders and eager to touch something. They clutched at each other, their pillows, at empty air to seize phantoms unseen. Many of them would wake feeling more tired than they had been upon going to bed, their muscles aching from the strain of caging their fears, and then the babble of the news would coax that poisonous worry to the surface all over again. It was worse for those still awake. This hour, already unnatural, felt downright hostile in the paranoid days. Late shift workers and unsmiling insomniacs found themselves constantly glancing at unlit spaces. In the corners of their eyes, the dark would grow tendrils and reach out to them, and they would turn and look at the shadows fully and see a patch of shadow and nothing more. They drank strong coffee and kept their eyes on computer screens to let the torrent of bad news electrify their minds awake. Coffee good for you? Screen's not good for you. In the open maw of that space between today and tomorrow, they waited and hoped that it would not bite down. Is that it? Well, I guess I'll see you tomorrow, guys, when I release the part 2. No, of course I'm not going to stop there. There's still more to go. The Sakamoto's apartment was clean but small, and made more cramped still by the riot of things on the walls. Ryuji's mother was a big fan of picture frames. They crowded the halls to the point where the rooms seemed much narrower than they should have been. Some pictures were of Tokyo itself, some generic landscapes, quite a few of Ryuji and his mother. The former gradually growing taller, but always with that lopsided grin. The latter a small and bob-haired woman with delicate long-fingered hands, pianist's hands, unsuited for the difficult work of raising a child alone. She smiled nonetheless in every picture, often clinging to Ryuji as if the wind would pick up and blow her away. Ryuji's track trophies sparkled in a place of honor on the living room mantel. He walked past them with his head down, the umbrella clenched in his fist, still dripping water. Thank you, Hasso Toby, for giving us your own description of what Ryuji's mother looks like. Interesting. Anyone who knew him might reasonably expect his bedroom to look like a bomb had hit it, but this room, too, was quite clean. There were a few carefully maintained patches of clutter in out-of-sight corners, and the walls were so mobbed by posters, anime, track stars, a few discreet gravure idols, that a single wayward spark would probably make the whole place burn like a wig, but otherwise it was barely even dusty. A pair of running shoes sat reverently on the windowsill. Ryuji flung his umbrella in their general direction and fell down on his bed. The springs squealed like things in pain, There was a shadow in the doorway. Someone lurking just outside. Sorry. Ryuji stared at the ceiling and paid it no mind. Sit down wherever, he said. Ann stepped in, gingerly, as if expecting landmines, clutching her purse like a talisman. She'd let her hair out of its pigtails, and it hung around her head in a scraggly curtain. She looked like she just crawled out of a well. It's nice, she said, hesitantly. Always sort of wondered what your room looked like. Is it me, or does the clean description of Ryuji's bedroom look different than its appearance in Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight? Now you know. Ryuji's desk was haunted by the ghosts of homework left unfinished, its surface covered with restless doodles scribbled down whenever his attention span wandered. She carefully set her purse down on it and pulled up the chair. Time passed. I am terrible at making clock noises. I'll just go tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. Well, yeah. Ryuji said, So, how about you tell me why you're really here? She'd caught up to him just before he took the last train out, his forgotten umbrella in her hands. It hadn't done him much good. He'd already been soaked to the bone. He'd taken it without a word, and just before the train pulled up, she blurted out if she could come to his place tonight instead. Ryuji had looked at her like she'd just ripped off her top and pulled out her whip, but she'd been undeterred. Please, she'd said. I don't want to be alone tonight. I meant what I said, she told him. There's something creepy in the air lately. You said it yourself. And my parents are out of town again. After everything that happened, if I went back there on my own, I'd just spend the night wide awake with all the lights on. Ryuji grunted. His mother was on the graveyard shift this week, he'd said. It was just the two of them. You should have hit up Haru and Makoto instead, he said. Their digs are way nicer than this. Probably. So, what? You just tag along to chew me out some more? No. I don't think you want to be alone tonight either. A long silence. Ryuji kept his eyes on the ceiling, fingers laced behind his head. Then he said, I ain't gonna apologize. Screw that guy. Okay. Pisses me off, the way everyone's walking on eggshells around him. It's like, I remember that he killed enough people to fill up a decent-sized classroom, and somehow that makes me the bad guy? Okay. Ain't like he's the only one who had to eat a bowl of shit growing up. Futaba and Yusuke had it just as bad for starters. Hell, Futaba had it bad because of him in the first place. All of us went through some kind of trouble. You know what none of us did? Killed people! I hear you, she said, though privately she had some doubts about Haru. Her awful sleaze of a fiancé had vanished very abruptly one day, and none of them had seen or heard of him since. Or it could be that maybe Akechi decided to get rid of him as well after getting rid of Kunikazu. Because otherwise, Haru may have intimidated him to just fuck off and go under the grid. Otherwise, she'll go Leatherface on his ass. One look at that gardening axe, and he's all like, Screw this, I am out. It's just what you said. It was a little... I know. He groaned and covered his face. God damn it. I know what it was. The rain tapped against the window. Ann shifted uncomfortably in her seat. You want to talk about what happened? She asked. Nothing to talk about. He pulled his hands away. We screwed up. Again. You called it right from the start. We didn't prepare at all. We tried to go in there like big damn heroes, and we just made things worse. We all saw what happened on the train. That son of a bitch barely waited 15 minutes before he started hunting people again. This shit's not gonna end. We won't give up. We'll meet tomorrow, go back and what? Who's gonna be the next to get snatched, you think? Makoto? Futaba? You or me? Or maybe he'll just yank us all down at once. He's probably bored of acting like we're any sort of threat to him. He finally looked over, saw Ann's pained expression. He sighed. Sorry, I'm being bitchy. You know, Ryuji, if I'd gone for the exact same thing that you did, if I was there alongside you guys, got our ass kicked by Iago and watched Akira get dragged down with him, I would honestly be in a shitty mood as well. It's fine. I get where you're coming from. Morale is pretty much in the crapper right now. Ryuji nodded and turned back to the ceiling, and this time Ann followed his gaze. The top of his bedroom was studded with small plastic stars. 5 pointed like a child's drawing. Ann remembered them from somewhere, and said as much to Ryuji. Yeah, you've probably seen it before. How about you turn off the light for a sec? She did, and when the light flicked off, the stars lit up, glowing a gentle phosphorescent green. The color painted the walls and lay like dust on their upturned faces. Oh, right, I had these when I was a little kid. Got bored of them quick, though. I'm surprised you kept them. How can you get bored of glow-in-the-dark stars? They're amazing. Ain't really my choice. My mom bought a whole box when I was in grade school, but that glue crap you were supposed to use to keep them stuck kept wearing off. One day I just got fed up and threw them all away. When she came home that day and saw me all bummed out and these things in my trash can, she did something to keep them up there. Super glue, maybe. Only way you can get them down now is with a paint scraper or something. He rested his hands on his chest. I don't mind it. We still joke about it sometimes. They're pretty. I guess. The glow doesn't last long. And sure enough, the light was already starting to dim. Ann took her seat again, the two of them in the gathering dark. Hey, Takamaki. Can I ask you something weird? Now you've got me curious. It's about Akira. Mostly I ain't totally comfortable talking about him when he's, you know. But it's bothering me lately. Go ahead. I won't tell. Ryuji's bed springs shifted. Guess I'll just ask right out. In all the time you spent hanging out with the guy, did you ever get the feeling that he doesn't like himself all that much? She blinked. Huh? Technically, I've known him longer than anybody else here. It was too dark to see his face anymore, but she still felt his eyes on her. Not by much, but it still sort of counts. It was just this vibe I got off him after a while. You ever notice how he was pretty much never alone? Even when he wasn't hanging out with us or one of the other weirdos he knew around the city, he still had that friggin' cat around him practically 24/7. And it's ain't exactly like he's extroverted? Yeah, that. Dude's practically got a little privacy field floating around with him. He just never wants to be by himself. I guess. He had a point. Now that she thought about it, on the rare occasion when Akira didn't have time to spare for her when she asked, it was nearly always because he was on his way to rendezvous with someone else. It explained why, in the course of less than a year, he'd established a web of loyal social contacts and had snared half of Tokyo. But what makes you think he's got self-esteem problems or whatever? It's 'cause I was the same way. Ryuji's voice was unusually hushed. In this dark room, it gave on the uneasy feeling that he wasn't here at all, that he'd been replaced by some doppelganger in the dying light of the artificial stars. After Kamoshida worked me over, sometimes I'd still hanging around what was left of the track team, even though they'd give me a mountain of shit and usually a couple of punches for good measure. Because it was better than being stuck in my own head. And then there's the shit that went down today. We ribbed Akira pretty good when we caught up with him, but you saw how bad it bothered him after. We practically had to drag him out of that Dead Sea place because he didn't think his safety was any big deal. He went in the first place just because Futaba was bummed out. He's gone now because he went after Akechi without thinking about it. And when we did beat down that creep with the chains, you remember what he said? Oh, no big deal, I didn't do anything. It was all you guys. Like, that shitty ain't even funny. We talk him up all the time, but he never gives himself credit. Ann shifted uncomfortably in her chair. What he was saying had a point. The pieces were all there. She just hadn't bothered fitting them together. What made her more uneasy than anything was that Ryuji was doing it. She didn't think he was as foolish as he let on, but an insightful Ryuji was more than she knew how to handle at the moment. Ryuji, where are you going with this? I don't know. He always acts like some badass loner, but after a while, I got the feeling he needed us just as bad as we needed him. I felt responsible, I guess. I didn't want to let him down. We all felt responsible. That's what made us a team. Yeah. Less than a year ago, we were on top of the world. Blew away a god, saved the city. Now look. World's gone to shit again. I couldn't help Akira out. And I'm still acting like the same asshole whose leg got broke all those months back. He sniffed, and there was a rustle of cloth. To her shock, Ann realized he was tearing up. Is this how it's always gonna be? Just tripping into one screw up after the next? It tires the guy out. That's all I'm saying. No answer for a while. Then Ryuji's desk lamp clicked on, and he cringed away from its weak light, rubbing at his reddened eyes. Ann sat beside that glow, and the tangled curtain of her hair cast her face in shadow, so that only a pale blue eye was fully visible, regarding him without judgment. I know what you mean, she said. You and Akira. I was like that with Shiho, too. After we took care of Kamoshida, I got all gung-ho over self-improvement for a while, Eventually, I decided that I just wanted to be a better person for her sake. Even if she wasn't around or didn't need me, I still kept her in mind. Maybe that's how Akira thinks about us. Why he was so worried we might forget about him. She brushed her hair back, sighing. Dr. Takemi and Yusuke had it right. People can't see the bigger picture. Seems like we've just got to try and help our friends as best we can, and hope the rest of the world follows. I ain't okay with that, Ryuji said. Sorry, but I'm not. That's just selfishness with a pretty bow on top. It ain't enough to fix the world. Yeah, I guess so. But thinking you can fix the world all on your own is pretty selfish too. You put way too much pressure on yourself, Ryuji. He said nothing. But for what it's worth, you're not an asshole. You just let things get to you easily. That makes you the opposite of an asshole, if anything. After a moment, he sat up on his bed, looking at her quizzically. The hell would that even look like? An Audi? No! Oh my god, gross! He tried to grin. Hey, you brought it up. Just lay off Akechi while he's still around, okay? We really do need him for now. And I doubt he needs anyone's help feeling shitty, considering what he's got to look forward to. I guess. It doesn't make up for what he did, but it still freaked me out seeing what he looked like after coming back from the metaverse. I thought he was going to go out in the streets looking for brains. Zombie Akechi is something that I don't want to see. He rubbed a hand over his face. Give you credit for one thing, Tom Kameki. You at least know how to pull my head out of my ass. Why don't we hang out more? We should hang out more. Are you flirting with me? Haha, yeah, no. I'm already on Morgana's shit list. I'm pretty sure he's over that little crush by now, Ryuji. You try telling him that. He yawned. Okay, I'm crapping out. You want me to call you a cab? I'd rather not go out this late. Can I crush on the couch or something? Yeah, sure. I'll just text Ma so she doesn't freak when she gets home. He fidgeted with his thumbs for a moment. And, thanks for stopping over. Thanks for having me. She stood up. We'll get through this, okay? Try to worry about one thing at a time. Alright. First thing, kick Chain guy's ass. Big philosophical stuff after. Good night, Ryuji. Good night. She switched off the lamp and left the room, shutting the door behind her. Ryuji pulled out his phone, sent off a brief message. Hi, Ma. On's here. Not GF, Mr. Train. Love you. And then replaced it and settled into his pillows. The stars had drunk up the scarce lamplight and still shone faintly. Ryuji stared up at them until his lids grew heavy, and the night crawled across everything. This was really nice. Really, really nice. Also, I think I recall Morgana calling on by Lady On at some earlier point in the story. Is he really over his crush? That'd be a good sign of maturity from him. Well, next time, guys.